June 11th, 1962. A cold night covered San Francisco Bay. The waves around Alcatraz crashed against the rocks, like they wanted to swallow anyone who came close. Inside the prison, the lights slowly went out. The guards finished their final rounds, and behind steel bars, 3 men waited in complete silence. Alcatraz was not an ordinary prison. It was the end of the line. The prison built for men considered too dangerous, too violent, too hopeless for the rest of America. Murderers, bank robbers, escape artists, the worst of the worst. The island itself was a weapon. Freezing water, violent ocean currents, sharp rocks, and darkness stretching for miles. The guards had one rule they repeated to every prisoner who arrived.
Break the rules and you'll regret it.
Yes, sir.
Try to escape and the bay will kill you before we do.
For years, the warning proved true.
Keep climbing.
Many prisoners tried to escape Alcatraz. None survived. At least, that's what the government claimed. Then came the morning of June 12th. A prison guard walked toward a row of cells during routine inspection. Everything looked normal. The prisoners appeared asleep, blankets pulled up, heads resting quietly on pillows, until one guard stopped. Something felt wrong. No movement.
Hey.
The guard stepped closer, and suddenly, the head rolled off the bed.
What the hell?
It wasn't human. It was fake. A handmade head, built from soap, paint, toilet paper, and real human hair.
God!
The guard rushed to the next cell. Another fake head.
Not again!
Then another.
They're gone. They're all gone.
Sound the alarm! Break out! Sound the alarm! What's going on? Security breach!
Within seconds, sirens exploded across Alcatraz. Guards flooded the prison with shotguns and flashlights. Every corridor was searched, every door checked, but the prisoners were gone. Frank Morris, John Anglin, Clarence Anglin. 3 inmates had vanished from the most secure prison in America. Not escaped, vanished. The FBI launched one of the largest manhunts in the country's history. Boats searched the freezing bay. Helicopters scanned the ocean. Agents believed the men were dead because surviving those waters was supposed to be impossible. But then, something strange happened. Days passed, then weeks, and no bodies were ever found. No proof they drowned, no proof they survived, just silence. And more than 60 years later, the question still remains unanswered. Did 3 prisoners die trying to escape Alcatraz? Or did they successfully pull off the greatest prison break in American history? To understand how impossible this escape was, you first need to understand Alcatraz. Alcatraz wasn't just a prison, it was a warning. A concrete fortress built in the middle of freezing water, designed to break the minds of the most dangerous criminals in America. The prison stood alone on a small rocky island in San Francisco Bay. Cold fog surrounded it almost every night. From a distance, the prison looked less like a building and more like a military bunker waiting for war. The US government opened Alcatraz as a federal prison in 1934. But it wasn't meant for ordinary criminals. Only the prisoners considered uncontrollable were sent there. Men who attacked guards, men who escaped other prisons, men the government believed could never be trusted again. Inside those walls were some of the most feared names in American crime. Kidnappers, murderers, bank robbers, gangsters, even the infamous Al Capone spent years trapped inside Alcatraz. But what truly made the prison terrifying wasn't just the steel bars. It was the island itself. The water surrounding Alcatraz was brutally cold. Strong currents tore through the bay, day and night. A man could disappear beneath the waves within minutes. Even experienced swimmers feared those waters.
You don't escape Alcatraz. The prison doesn't need walls, the ocean does the job for us.
And inside the prison, life was built on fear. The cells were tiny. The rules were absolute. Silence was enforced. Guards watched every prisoner, every moment, every movement, every conversation, every mistake.
You follow orders here, or you disappear into isolation.
Some prisoners called Alcatraz worse than death, because the prison did something far more terrifying than physical punishment. It didn't just break the body, it slowly destroyed hope. At night, the lights of San Francisco glowed in the distance. Freedom was visible, right outside their windows, close enough to see, but impossible to reach. Over the years, many prisoners tried to escape Alcatraz. Some were shot, some drowned, and others simply vanished into the freezing current. And with every failed attempt, the legend of Alcatraz grew stronger. The guards repeated the same sentence again and again.
Nobody escapes Alcatraz.
America believed it. The prisoners believed it. Even the FBI believed it. Which is exactly why what happened in the summer of 1962 terrified the entire country. The men behind the escape were not ordinary prisoners. They were patient, intelligent, and dangerous, each in a very different way. The mastermind behind the entire operation was one man, Frank Morris. At first glance, Morris didn't look intimidating. He was calm, quiet, almost emotionless. But prison officials quickly realized something terrifying about him. Frank Morris was exceptionally smart. Reports claimed his IQ was far above average. Some officers called him a criminal genius. A man who could study systems, memorize routines, and exploit the tiniest weaknesses others never even noticed. Morris had spent most of his life inside correctional institutions. He was abandoned as a child, arrested while still young, and by adulthood, prison had become the only world he truly understood. But there was one thing that made Frank Morris different from most inmates. He refused to accept cages.
Morris was the kind of prisoner who never stopped thinking. Even when he looked relaxed, his mind was always working.
Before arriving at Alcatraz, Morris had already escaped multiple prisons. Again and again. Every capture, every failure taught him something new. And eventually, that knowledge brought him to the one prison nobody was ever supposed to escape.
Now!
Then, there were the Anglin brothers. John Anglin and Clarence Anglin. Unlike Morris, the brothers came from a poor farming family. They grew up doing hard labor, fishing, swimming, surviving. As children, they spent years near rivers and dangerous waters. Swimming long distances became normal for them. That detail would later become critically important.
If there's water, there's always a way across.
The brothers were not known for high intelligence, but they were disciplined, loyal to each other, and fearless when it came to risk. Inside Alcatraz, the three men slowly formed a connection. Frank Morris brought the strategy. The Anglin brothers brought patience, teamwork, and survival skills.
We only have one shot at this.
Together, they began studying the prison, the guards, the schedules, the walls, every weakness.
Nobody escapes this place.
Then nobody's tried hard enough.
And from that moment, inside one of the most secure prisons on Earth, a plan was born. A plan that would eventually humiliate the FBI and turn three prisoners into legends. Escaping Alcatraz was supposed to be impossible. But impossible prisons are still built by human beings. And human beings make mistakes inside their cells. Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers began noticing something unusual, a weakness hidden behind the prison walls. At the back of each cell, near the floor, was a small ventilation opening. To most prisoners, it looked meaningless, just another part of the concrete structure.
Are you sure?
But Morris looked closer.
I can get through. This wall isn't solid.
Years of moisture had slowly damaged the concrete. The salty air from the ocean had weakened it from the inside. Behind those vents was an unused utility corridor. For the first time, the men realized something terrifying. There might actually be a way out. But reaching that corridor meant digging through concrete, inside one of the most heavily guarded prisons in America. The prisoners had no professional tools, no weapons, no machinery. So they built everything themselves. They stole metal spoons from the prison cafeteria, old scraps of metal, broken tools, anything they could hide. Then Frank Morris created something extraordinary. A homemade drill, powered using the motor from a stolen vacuum cleaner.
You really think this thing's gonna work?
It doesn't need to work forever. Just long enough.
Night after night, the men slowly scraped through concrete, a few inches at a time. Careful, patient, silent. The work was exhausting. Concrete dust filled the air. Their hands bled. Every sound risked exposing the operation. And if the guards discovered the holes, the punishment would be severe. Isolation, violence, or worse.
Nobody got second chances in Alcatraz. If we caught you planning an escape, your life was over.
But the men kept digging every single night for months. Slowly, the openings behind their vents became larger, large enough for a man to crawl through. And with every piece of concrete removed, the impossible escape became more real. But digging through the walls was only the beginning, because escaping the cell block still meant facing the deadliest part of Alcatraz, the ocean. The deeper the prisoners dug, the more dangerous the plan became. Concrete is never quiet. Every scrape, every crack, every vibration echoed through the prison walls. And inside Alcatraz, noise could get a man killed. The prisoners knew they needed cover. Something loud enough to hide the sound of digging. Then,
let's make some music.
they found the perfect opportunity.
Take us away, Red.
Music hour. Alcatraz allowed certain inmates to play instruments for short periods during the evening. Most guards considered it harmless, just another way to keep prisoners calm. But Frank Morris saw it differently. To him, it was camouflage. As one prisoner played the accordion, the sound echoed through the cell block, and behind the walls, the real work began.
Keep playing. Louder.
Metal scraped against concrete. Dust filled the air. Sweat rolled down their faces. Every second mattered. The men worked quickly before the music stopped. Then they cleaned everything, every piece of debris, every trace of dust, every sign that the walls were being destroyed from the inside. But hiding the holes became another problem. So the prisoners improvised. Using cardboard, paint, and stolen materials, they created fake wall panels. From a distance, the damaged walls looked normal. Even guards walking directly past the cells noticed nothing.
That's the frightening part. They were digging right under our noses, and we had no idea.
Night after night, the holes grew larger, until finally, the prisoners could squeeze through them. Behind the cells, above the prison block, the men discovered an empty, hidden space. Dark, dusty, almost forgotten by the prison itself. And there, they built a secret workshop. The space became the heart of the escape. A place hidden above the guards, where the prisoners prepared for the most dangerous part of their plan. Because escaping the cells wasn't enough. Even escaping the prison building wasn't enough. To survive, they would have to cross freezing ocean water in complete darkness. And for that, they needed something Alcatraz never expected prisoners to build.
If the water doesn't kill us, we walk free.
By the summer of 1962, the escape plan was almost ready. The tunnels were complete, the workshop was hidden, the raft was being prepared. But there was still one final problem. The guards checked the prison cells multiple times every night. Flashlights passed across the beds, looking for movement, looking for prisoners. If a guard noticed an empty bed, the entire prison would lock down instantly. The escape would end before it even began. So Frank Morris came up with another solution. Simple, disturbing, brilliant. The prisoners decided to leave themselves behind. Inside their hidden workshop, the men began building fake human heads. They used soap, toilet paper, concrete dust scraped from the walls, anything they could shape by hand. Then came the detail that made the illusion terrifyingly realistic. real human hair. The hair was secretly collected from the prison barber shop, small pieces at a time, carefully hidden from guards.
You really think this is gonna fool them? In the dark, guards see what they expect to see.
The prisoners painted the fake faces by hand. Eyebrows, skin tones, hairlines, every detail mattered. And in the dim prison lighting, the fake heads looked horrifyingly real. Night after night, the prisoners tested them, adjusting angles, blankets, pillows, making sure the sleeping figures looked natural during guard patrols.
It wasn't just a prison escape. It was theater. They understood human psychology.
Finally, after months of planning, everything was ready. June 11th, 1962. The lights inside Alcatraz dimmed. The guards began their nightly rounds. And inside 3 prison cells, fake heads rested quietly on pillows, waiting to fool an entire prison. That night, the escape finally began. June 11th, 1962. The night that transformed 3 prisoners into legends. A cold wind moved across San Francisco Bay. Fog drifted around the prison walls. And inside Alcatraz, the final countdown had begun. The guards completed their nightly inspections. Flashlights swept across the cells. Everything appeared normal. 3 prisoners seemed asleep in their beds. The fake heads had worked. Then, the prison slowly fell silent. Inside their cells, Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers waited motionless in the darkness, listening, counting, timing every movement of the guards.
This is it.
One by one, the prisoners removed the ventilation grills behind their cells. Then, carefully squeezed through the narrow opening. Concrete scraped against their clothes. Dust filled the air. One wrong movement could create enough noise to expose everything. Behind the cells, the men entered the hidden utility corridor they had spent months reaching. Dark, tight, silent. Above them, armed guards continued their patrols, completely unaware that 3 inmates were now moving freely inside the prison walls.
Keep moving. Faster. Quiet, just keep moving.
The prisoners climbed upward through pipes and maintenance shafts. Carefully, slowly, every second felt endless. Then finally, they reached the roof. Cold air hit their faces. For the first time in years, there were no bars above them. But freedom was still far away. Searchlights moved across the prison grounds. Guards carried rifles. One sound, one shadow, one misplaced step, and they would be shot dead instantly. Bent low against the rooftop, the men crossed through the darkness like ghosts, their hearts pounding, their clothes soaked by the ocean mist. At the edge of the roof, the prisoners carefully climbed down pipes toward the shoreline below. Sharp concrete tore into their hands. The ocean roared beneath them. Then, hidden near the water, they found it. A handmade raft, built in secret over months, created from more than 50 stolen raincoats. sealed together using heat and steam.
That raft shouldn't have existed. The fact they built it inside Alcatraz is unbelievable.
The men quickly inflated the raft in darkness, working fast, working silently. In front of them waited the freezing Pacific Ocean, black water, violent currents, certain death, according to the prison authorities. And behind them stood Alcatraz, the prison nobody escaped from.
Once we push off, there's no turning back.
Then, without another word, the three men disappeared into the night. The prison was behind them, but the real danger was only beginning. The waters surrounding Alcatraz were not ordinary ocean currents. They were deadly. That night, the temperature of the water was close to 50 degrees Fahrenheit, cold enough to force the human body into shock within minutes. Muscles would tighten, breathing would become difficult, hands would slowly stop responding, and eventually, the ocean would pull you under.
People underestimate that water. You don't fight it for long.
The currents around Alcatraz were violent and unpredictable. Even experienced swimmers disappeared there. Some were dragged out toward the Pacific Ocean. Others slammed into rocks beneath the surface. And at night, the bay became even more terrifying. Fog covered the water. Wind pushed against the waves. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. Somewhere in that darkness, a small homemade raft drifted silently away from Alcatraz. Inside it, Frank Morris, John Anglin, and Clarence Anglin moved deeper into the freezing bay.
Keep paddling.
No rescue team knew they were gone yet. No alarms had sounded. For a few brief moments, the three prisoners had something they hadn't felt in years: freedom. But freedom, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, came with a terrifying price. Every wave threatened to flip the raft. Every current could drag them into darkness forever. And if the raft failed, the freezing water would finish what Alcatraz started.
No matter what happens, don't stop!
Then slowly, the raft disappeared into the fog. That moment became the final confirmed sighting of the escapees. No guard ever saw them again. No witness confirmed where they went. And after that night, the ocean kept its secrets. Morning arrived over Alcatraz. The guards began another routine day inside the prison. But within minutes, everything changed. During morning inspection, one officer noticed something strange inside a prison cell. A prisoner wasn't moving.
Morris, wake up!
Wake up.
Morris! Wake up, Morris!
The guard stepped closer. Then suddenly, the head rolled off the pillow and crashed onto the floor.
Jesus Christ.
Code red. Everyone move now.
The prison erupted into chaos.
Status update. Stay alert. Breach at Sector 7.
Guards rushed through the corridors. Cell doors slammed open. Search teams flooded the building. And within seconds, alarms screamed across Alcatraz Island.
Lock down the prison. Nobody leaves the island. Seal the gates. Move, move, move. Get back in your cells now.
The guards searched every inch of the prison. The cells, the
Check the ceiling
tunnels,
panels.
the rooftops.
Sector B is clear.
But the prisoners
Moving
were
to the
gone.
east wing.
Frank Morris, John Anglin, Clarence Anglin. 3 inmates had escaped from the most secure prison in America. News of the escape spread rapidly across the country. Newspapers exploded with headlines. Radio stations interrupted broadcasts. The impossible had happened. Soon, the FBI entered the investigation. Agents believed the prisoners couldn't have survived for long. The freezing water, the currents, the darkness, everything pointed toward one conclusion.
Nobody survives that bay.
Search boats scanned the ocean for bodies. Helicopters circled above the water. Coast Guard teams searched nearby shorelines. Divers checked areas around the island. Then investigators found something floating in the bay. Pieces of a homemade paddle, fragments of personal belongings, part of a raincoat. To the FBI, it looked like confirmation.
It is highly unlikely they survived the crossing.
The raft failed. They drowned out there.
The official explanation became simple. The prisoners escaped Alcatraz, entered the freezing water, and died trying to cross the bay. But there was a problem. No bodies were ever recovered. No confirmed remains. No raft. No proof that the men had actually drowned. And as days turned into weeks, a terrifying possibility slowly began entering people's minds. What if the escape had actually worked? For the FBI, the case should have been over. 3 prisoners escaped into freezing water. The ocean swallowed them. End of story. But the story refused to die.
New evidence can change everything.
Because after the escape, strange evidence began appearing. Small details, rumors, unexplained sightings, clues that made the mystery even darker.
I remember this.
Years after the escape, members of the Anglin family made shocking claims.
We never believed they drowned.
According to relatives, the brothers secretly contacted the family after escaping, not openly, not directly, but through mysterious messages and hidden signs. Some family members claimed they received unsigned Christmas cards for years. The cards were allegedly written in handwriting similar to the Anglin brothers, but no one could ever prove where they came from. Then came an even stranger claim.
Every claim must be
During family funerals, witnesses reported seeing 2 unfamiliar women standing quietly near the crowd, watching from a distance. Some relatives believed they were connected to the missing brothers. But the most controversial evidence appeared decades later. A photograph. The image reportedly showed 2 men standing on a farm in Brazil. According to investigators hired by the Anglin family, the men strongly resembled John and Clarence Anglin.
If that photo is real, it changes everything.
The photograph was never officially confirmed, but it reopened the mystery. Then, in 2013, the case took another disturbing turn. The FBI received a handwritten letter. The writer claimed to be John Anglin. According to the letter, Frank Morris died years later. Clarence Anglin had also passed away, and John himself was now an old man, living in secret. The FBI quietly investigated the letter. Handwriting experts examined it. Fingerprint tests were conducted. But investigators could never confirm if it was genuine. And once again, the case returned to the same terrifying mystery. Did the prisoners die in the freezing waters of San Francisco Bay? Or had they spent decades hiding in plain sight while the world believed they were dead? So after all these years, what really happened to the escapees of Alcatraz? Did Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers drown in the freezing waters of San Francisco Bay? Or did they successfully disappear from the prison forever? Even today, no one knows for certain. And that is what makes this story so terrifying. Some investigators believe the answer is simple. The freezing water was deadly, the currents were violent, the weather conditions were unforgiving, and the homemade raft may never have survived the journey.
Nature finished what the prison started.
But not everyone agrees. Other experts point toward the escapees themselves, especially the Anglin brothers. They grew up swimming, fishing, working in rivers, surviving difficult conditions from childhood. To them, cold water was not unfamiliar. And unlike desperate prisoners making reckless escape attempts, these men planned everything for months. They studied guard routines, they built tools, they created fake walls, they constructed a raft, and they timed every step with extraordinary precision.
This wasn't luck. This was engineering.
Then, decades later, researchers decided to test the impossible. Using historical weather reports, ocean current data, and the exact conditions from the night of June 11, 1962, they recreated the journey. The results surprised many experts.
Survival was actually possible there.
According to the research, the currents could have carried the raft towards safer areas outside the bay, meaning the escapees may never have needed to swim the entire distance at all. And suddenly, the official story no longer felt certain. Because for decades, the world believed escaping Alcatraz was impossible. But the evidence kept pointing toward a disturbing possibility. Maybe the prison was never truly escape-proof. Maybe 3 prisoners outsmarted one of the most secure prisons in human history and vanished before anyone realized what had happened. The escape of 1962 changed Alcatraz forever. For years, the prison had been presented as unbeatable, a fortress surrounded by death, a place no human being could escape. But after the disappearance of Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers, that image began to crack, because whether they survived or not, they had already accomplished something historic. They exposed weaknesses, blind spots, human mistakes.
The escape destroyed the illusion of perfection.
Just 1 year later, in 1963, Alcatraz officially closed. The prison was too expensive, too isolated, and too damaged by time and ocean air. But even after the cells emptied, the legend remained. Today, thousands of visitors walk through those silent corridors. They stand inside the tiny cells. They stare at the ventilation openings carved into the walls. The same openings 3 prisoners crawled through on a cold night in 1962. And almost everyone leaves Alcatraz thinking about the same question.
What if they actually made it?
Maybe the escape ended the moment the raft touched the freezing water. Maybe the ocean buried the truth. forever. Or maybe, on that dark night in 1962, 3 men accomplished what nobody else could. Maybe Frank Morris, John Anglin, and Clarence Anglin outsmarted the guards, fooled the FBI, survived the bay, and disappeared into the world without leaving a trace. That possibility is what transformed the Alcatraz escape into one of the greatest mysteries in criminal history. Because this story was never just about escaping a prison. It was about defeating something the world believed was unbeatable. And more than 60 years later, the mystery still refuses to die. No confirmed bodies, no final evidence, no clear answers. Only silence, fog, and the cold waters surrounding Alcatraz. Somewhere beyond those waves, the truth disappeared. So, what do you believe? Did the prisoners drown in the freezing Pacific Ocean? Or did they successfully escape Alcatraz and live the rest of their lives in secret? Comment your theory below. And if you enjoy dark true crime stories, prison escapes, disappearances, and unsolved mysteries, subscribe now. Because sometimes the most terrifying mysteries are the ones that were never solved.